In this video, I'm going to be talking about 9 brand new tennis racket lines that are coming out next year in 2026, and one that's supposed to come out in like a month from the time of recording this, which is in October of 2025, so about November. So let's get right into it. So the very first racket we're going to talk about is going to be the racket that's set to come out later this year in 2025, and that is going to be the FX 500, or just the FX line from Dunlop themselves. First up on the list, the Dunlop FX 500. A lot of this, from what I've seen personally, is more a cosmetic change. They are, I believe, updating the grommets a little bit in order for the actual racket to have a little bit more play with it. I think that they may have enlarged the grommet holes to try and give the racket a little bit of a bigger sweet spot, as well as to give it a little bit more access to power, because the strings are then able to move a little bit more. However, I've not gotten a hit with the Dunlop FX 500 in terms of the new one, but it should be releasing, if I heard right, it should probably be coming out this November, and if not, it'll definitely be here in 2026. So definitely one to look out for. I'm kind of iffy on the colorway itself. I think it does look good, but I can definitely see why people may not like it. We'll see though. Now getting into the actual rackets that are coming out in 2026, we're going to start with this brand because they have some of the most rackets coming, and that's going to be Head. So number one we're going to talk about is the Speed. The Speed is obviously the very first one because if you didn't notice, the actual Speed Legend MPs that recently came out earlier this year in 2025, those were actually the exact rackets that are coming out in 2026. They're just the all blacked out edition because it was for the Legend collection, because Head doesn't know how much longer Novak is going to play. So they wanted to get these out a little bit ahead of time. However, that is going to be, if you've played with those, that is going to be how the new Speeds are feeling. Now, there has been talks and circulations about the Speed potentially coming in a different head size, which it normally doesn't do. And I'm not going to confirm nor deny. However, I'm pretty sure I saw a smaller head size Speed, and I'm pretty sure it was a 97. So take with that what you will. I think it's going to be interesting. I really want to get that one on court just because I never would have thought that if Head was going to do a smaller head size that they would ever consider going down below a 98. But if they are doing it, I will really, really want to play with it, especially for the weight of it being about a normal control-oriented type racket weight. I think it's going to be very interesting, and I'm very excited to see how it plays, especially with the new boron technology that they added into the Speed rackets themselves. Then after the Speed, Head has brand new booms coming out. And what they are doing with the booms, I think, is honestly pretty cool for them to do. They are essentially going to split the colors, so they're going to have some rackets in one color, some rackets in another color, and you get to decide which one you want. I think the colors are awesome, as well as they're going to appeal to a lot more of a broader audience. They're not necessarily going to be that mint color anymore, but it's not going to be as extreme as, say, like the Head Boom Team L is right now, where it's only that mint color, or the reverse Boom MP for Coco. They're not going to look like that. That's not their color. They're something else. It looks cool to me. And there's one I would really want, but I don't think I'm going to get just because I don't know if I would want to pay for a boom when I don't necessarily use the boom. But I think it's going to be a very easy way for newer players to get into it and just have a few different options never hurts. As well as I think they're also adding the boron like they did to the Speeds into the boom. I'm not entirely sure on that one, so when they do come out, you'll have to fact check me and come back to this video. But if they do, I think it's going to do well just because the boron seems to be making the head rackets a little bit more stable, have a little bit better feel, and on a power racket, never hurts. And then after these two, which is already a lot for a brand, there's supposedly a secret racket that is also coming out. Now, this secret racket from Head, that if you've seen pictures of it, it kind of looks silver and it looks like there's a lot of space in between the strings just because of how they've spaced out the grommets and spaced out the strings. Yeah, this thing, from what I've heard, it's trying to really, really compete with one specific racket from one specific brand just because they saw how well the racket did. And I got to tell you, it's trying to compete with the Wilson Clash. Shh. You didn't hear that from me. But that's what I've heard about the actual racket. I've, again, not got to play with it. I've not actually seen it in person, but I have heard that it is supposed to be coming out next year. And if what Head is doing, if they're able to actually make this work, I think that having a rival to the Wilson Clash in a different brand is going to be a very good thing. Some people will usually, if they're trying to compare or demo against the Wilson Clash, they may go to the Head Gravity line because those are also a much more flexible racket compared to a lot of others that are out there right now. But if they can get one that is more similar to the Clash in terms of the flexibility of it and the playability, then I think may come in as a very easy way for beginners or people who are wanting to avoid tennis elbow to actually have another racket brand to try rather than just being stuck and resigned to the Clash and then potentially like a Vcore or a Pro Kenix and maybe something that isn't what they were thinking of. That now Head may be offering that to them. But again, not sure, haven't seen it. But from what I've heard and just things I've seen online, I think it might be coming. That's all I'm going to say. Then moving away from Head, here at number 5, we're going to move over to Wilson. And this is probably the most expected, or one of the most expected of the entire list, and that is going to be the Wilson Blade. Now, the long-awaited Wilson Blade V10. The big thing about the Wilson Blade V10 from what I've heard is that it is not necessarily going to be an extremely major update from the V9. The biggest thing is that on the Blade 16x19 and the Blade 18x20, in terms of the normal 98 head size, really I think the only big change is that on those two rackets specifically, they are slightly thinning out the beam of the racket itself. I think for the others, they are very much going to keep the blade at the beam thickness and the width that they currently are. But I think on their two main ones, the 98 16x19 and the 98 18x20, I believe those two are getting a little bit of a thinner beam at the top of the head, and that's going to be about it. There may be a little bit of a technology change in them to just kind of like have a more updated technology to maybe what they did with the Wilson Ultra. However, the biggest thing is that small shift in terms of the actual beam width. And that's going to be the big thing to take note of when you're demoing the new blades against the old blades. Number 6, we have the Pro Staff. The Wilson Pro Staff. We're on version 14 right now, so what are they going to do with this one? All I can say is, oh my gosh, the new Wilson Pro Staffs look so much better than the old ones do. The version 14, the brown, I don't know what Wilson was thinking, but I hope they don't do it again. I think Wilson has realized that too. So the new ones look so much better. It's going back more towards that classic Pro Staff look. I'm not saying it's going to look like the red ones or the red and white. No, the other one that you can think of that a lot of people really became familiar with it in the past, I'd say, decade. It's going to look more like that. So the other big thing about it, besides just the colorway, is that it's, from what I've seen and heard, not actually much of an update in terms of spec-wise. It's just kind of like a reskin or a recolor, and I don't think it's going to say or go to say like version 15. I think it is going to be more of just kind of like what Yonex does with their rackets every year and a half, where they kind of like come out with a brand new color of it, but it's the exact same racket. I think they're doing that and then potentially just getting rid of some of the actual racket lines within the Pro Staff itself. So I think they might be getting rid of the Pro Staff X as well as the Pro Staff 97 UL, but I think everything else is safe to stay. That's what I've heard about the Pro Staff. If I'm wrong, I'm going to be wrong just because I do not get all of the information. This is just what I've seen online. So we'll talk and we'll see what happens when 2026 comes. Then after the Pro Staff, we move on down. Wilson also has another secret racket. So now Head's already potentially working on a secret racket. Wilson, we know for a fact, has been working on a secret racket. And if you've kept your eyes on the Pro Tour, You've probably seen it. You just didn't know it because it was blacked out. But if you're an extreme tennis gearhead or a tennis nerd, as you may have heard from the other channels, there's one player that's been using this for a while, and he almost won a tournament with it. He was very, very close. He made it to the finals, and it was Karen Khachanov. So Khachanov has been testing this racket, and from what I've heard, and just what I would hope, is that it is a spin racket to try and rival the Babolat Pure Aero and the Yonex Vcore and the other spin rackets that are out there, because that's really the only big area and department that Wilson is lacking in right now. They have great control rackets with the Blade and the Pro Staff. They have great power rackets with the Ultra. They have a very easy on the arm and comfortable racket being the Clash. They have, technically the Burn is still around, but no one really uses the Burn unless you just really want a very, very big deal on a racket. So the Shift, it's there. Not a lot of people took to it. It's wasn't really a big thing. It was a hard thing for Wilson to kind of explain with the bending technology that they were talking about and how that all worked. So I think with their secret racket, the spin racket going to replace the Shift would be my guess. And I think if they can pull it off, I think the Pure Aero and the Vcore will be in trouble, just because Wilson has a almost cult following, and if they can get a decent spin racket that is highly comparable to those two, Wilson may have a winner on their hands. All I'm going to say. I haven't played with it. I'd love to, but I haven't got to yet. We'll see. Number 8, we have the Vcore. The newest racket from the brand that has probably blown up the most since the beginning of 2025 with the launch of the new E-Zone, the Yonex Vcore. Now, I gotta say, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of red. I know I'm wearing pink, which is technically a shade of red. However, the Yonex Vcore, the new ones, to me, they look pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I don't usually go for red stuff, but it looks sick, especially because when I saw it in person, the one I saw was glossy. So I'm like, yes, this is going to look sick. So don't know how it's going to play yet. Haven't got to play with it. But it looks cool. And it's coming soon. The one bad thing about the Vcore is that not even with the racket itself, it's just if Yonex is going to be able to deliver it on time, because of all the problems they're having with shipping and just getting inventory in, since they had pretty much stopped production on all the Perceps and all the Vcores to just focus on the E-Zone for the past few months. I hope, and I really hope, that they get this shipment of the brand new Vcores in when they are set to release in 2026. But if they don't, that's going to put a damper on things, because people are going to want to try it. They're going to want it. If they can't get it, then they're going to go to other spin frames potentially if they cannot wait and they need a new racket. Kind of like the next racket that we're going to talk about in terms of spin frames that people are very often comparing to the Yonex Vcore, just in general. Number 9 is the Pure Aero. The Babolat Pure Aero. You know what I just noticed? And this is just like literally me like realizing this right now. This is not like scripted or anything, as you could probably tell from how I'm talking through the other ones. I just realized that they're releasing a brand new Speed, a brand new Pro Staff, and a brand new Pure Aero all in the same year. And that is pretty much just, they're releasing Novak's new racket, Roger's new racket, and Rafa's new racket. So I just came up to that realization. I think that's pretty cool, especially since I know Roger has the RF01s, which is technically his racket, but everyone always knew him as the Pro Staff. So I just think that was a cool little tidbit that I just found out. But anyway, about the Pure Aero, biggest thing with this is, what are they going to do to the 98? And I think that's going to be the question on everyone's mind, because the 98 is such a big seller right now. You really don't see as many of the regular Pure Aeros or the Pure Aero teams, the Pure Aero Lights or the Pluses being sold, because the 98 just outpaces everything. Carlos is the highest champion since Rafa, and depending upon how well he continues to do, he may even go further than Rafa in terms of the rackets that has sold. The Pure Aero, I think, is still Babolat's best-selling racket of all time, but I think the Pure Aero 98 may be able to pass it with how many people are switching to that thing. But with the new version 2026, from what I've heard, I have not got to see the new one yet, but from what I've heard, they are kind of doing what the Blade did, to where they are thinning the racket a little bit. I don't think it's in the head. I think the thinning of the beam thickness for the Pure Aero is in the throat of the racket, not the top of the head. So it's a very interesting shift that they're trying to make. Babolat knows that they have something really good here, and they're not wanting to mess it up a lot. So they're trying to do like small incremental shifts that they think will make the racket much better. But it's all going to depend on how it actually feels in our hands, especially for everyone who has already gone to the Pure Aero 98, and then they find out that there's the new one. So I'll be very curious to know what you think about if you do use the 98 currently and then you test the new one. Definitely come back to the video. Let me know what you think in the comments, so that way we can all talk about it and see if what Babolat did actually ended up working out for them. Oh, I also heard it's not actually going to be yellow anymore. I heard it might actually be a different color. So that's cool too. If you're finally like, oh, let's get something different besides yellow in here, which we might be getting here soon. So excited to see it. And then finally, at number 10, we have the TFX1, which is going to become whatever it is going to be called after this. And then finally, the TFX1 to the whatever. I'm pretty sure the reason I have whatever there is that the TFX1 line, I think from what I've heard or just seen online, is that it's getting completely overhauled in terms of it's not going to be called the TFX1 anymore. It's going to be called something completely different. So they're just updating the entire line, and then the TFX1 name will just kind of like fade into obscurity. But we'll see. I don't know. This is probably the one I've heard the least about, just because where I worked, we didn't even get the TFX1 version 2. We just still had the original one. So yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with it, and if they are going to revamp it, what they're going to call it. And we'll just kind of go from there. So those are all the rackets that I have to talk about. Maybe the Dunlop comes out and surprises us all with another new one, being the new CX, even though it came out in 2024, the most recent version of it. Only reason I say that is because they released the SX this year at around January, and now they're releasing the FX, which is the new version, here soon. So my guess would maybe be they come out with a CX next year. If not, I think that they would probably be fine to take the year off and make sure that they actually do a little bit more R&D on what's working with the 3 frames in itself. As long as they don't come out with like a new LX, because who really knows or really does much with the LX? It's just kind of there. Anyway, that's all I got for you. If you have any more information about any of these rackets, or if you have got to test any of these, I'd love to know what your thoughts were on them, just so that way we can all have an idea of what's coming and in terms of how it's going to feel. And if you like the video, leave a like on it. Comment, like I said, anything you want to know or anything that you do know about these rackets, so we can all talk about it, as well as just subscribe to the channel so we can grow this channel and get the information out there from the people that have it to the people that need it. And as always, take care.